And Doorkeeper for the evening. And tonight we're returning back to the tavern. The barkeeper has been quiet over the last couple weeks, and he's hasn't seen anybody show up. So Torrance, our guest tonight, has decided to step in and reveal a new patron of the bar, and we get to find out what story she's going to bring to it. I'm pretty excited about that. But before we do, I want to at least let Torrance kind of give you an idea of who she is, where she's coming from, what she does in the TTRPG space. So take it away, Torrance.
Awesome, thank you. Yes, my name is Torrance. You can find me across TikTok and here on Twitch also as TinyT14 or the TinyT14. And yeah, I kind of just mess around in a lot of different aspects of the TTRPG community. I make a lot of what I think are very funny and demented versions of my characters on TikTok. And then I run my own table with a group of my friends. We are the off-branded group. You can find us on YouTube, and we like to do a variety of different types of games. And I kind of am known for my home brewing madness of spending like 6 months on making a wild magic table and just throwing things of all kinds of insanity at my players, and they just live with it.
Hey, and nothing wrong with that. And, some days that's what you need, right? We need to dive into, days on days of work into this this world we live in of the TTRPG, and what that stems sometimes could be absolute chaos, or it can be really exciting, fun drama that.
Yeah,
So
that wild magic table that I made, I was like, yeah, I'll just have like 100 different options, pretty standard. And then I was like, well, what if I made it more? And then it was like they had the opportunity to roll like 300 different things. It was bad.
yeah,
There was so much going on.
but it's fun, man. Like I said, the cool thing about stuff like that is you can reutilize it, which makes it even better. So
Yeah.
anytime something crazy would happen in your world now, you have this giant table rather than a smaller table to just sprinkle madness into everywhere. Um, Speaking of madness, just a quick story is our home game launched a couple weeks ago, and we play every other week, the day after our stream on Monday nights. And it's still based in Icewind Dale, and they're in a different town, and they're doing different things. But one of our players has already stumbled into madness, so it's getting exciting already. And we're on episode 3 with that because we're doing it every other week. So it's see what happens. But it's also a lot of people too. There's 8 players in that one, so
Yeah,
it's exhausting, but it's great.
my home table that I run, we went from 4 players plus me DMing to 6 players. And it doesn't sound like 2 adds a lot, but it with this group, 2 more people, I'm like, what happened?
Oh yeah.
I was like, oh, it's just 2 more people. And then I was like, oh, that's 2 more people who will find ways to unravel everything that I have spent a year working on. They'll just do it a lot faster.
Hey, no worries. All right. So, for our new people that are watching tonight, and for anybody that will watch this later on, this is the Tavern. So the Tavern has a feature to itself that it lives kind of in a space between everything. The way the world works is we start in your world. Where you're going to begin is up to you. We ask that you tell nothing about your character during this time. At one point, I'm going to tell you as you walk through a doorway, we don't know when, where, or when I'm going to say this. You're going to go from your spot to my spot. And this is where you'll meet the Tavern Keeper. Once you meet the Tavern Keeper, this is a place of tales. The only way you can purchase anything, get any information, anything you want out of the Tavern Keeper, you have to tell him a tale. So this is where we tell stories the entire night. We find out about characters. We bring them into the world of the Tavern Keeper, and we send them off, hopefully, with some experience, some life to themselves. Sometimes it can be very dramatic. Sometimes it can be silly. But normally there's some sort of lesson or therapy session that kicks off towards the end of this, and it's a lot of fun. There's no dice as well. So
That works.
for us to begin, where are we starting?
We are starting in a dark but like twinkling bits of light coming through far off secretive place in the Feywilds.
Okay.
It's small, it's kind of, it's like a secret garden, and not a lot of people in the Feywild really give it much thought or think of this place, because it's almost like you could just miss it if you were to walk past it, and that's kind of where we're at. Is we're in this little space that seems like it could just vanish at any moment.
Kind of in those, like, if you think about the Feywild, a lot of people think of them as doorways, right? And you've got these giant crescent, circular domes that kind of connect these different portions of the Feywild. So we're kind of glancing through this dome is what I can think of. And if you walk past it the wrong way, of course you won't see it. But if you walk past it just at the right angle, you'll catch a glimpse of this forest or garden, right?
Yes. And it very much is like the best parts of like a heavily wooded forest, but like a beautiful like fairy and bay rich garden, just a little bit more wild than some of the other courts like to keep their spaces.
Okay. So we're thinking this is closer to more you're allowing the Fey magic to kind of roam.
Yeah.
Outside of controlling, because if you get into deeper Fey magic, you're talking the courts and stuff like that. They kind of keep that control to themselves, and they kind of hold on to it to kind of keep some sort of balance to it. But here, we allow it to roam, so everything's probably a little more vibrant looking. It's colorful. You've got vegetation growing all around, sometimes very strangely growing. I'm seeing these things. I don't know if I'm getting it right.
No,
I'm
you
absolutely
are. It's not just like strangely growing, but it's like it's almost like all of the different courts like spaces have like
blended together.
Have blended together. So you've got your mushrooms, and you've got your big tulips, and then you've got your like creepy moss colored like vines coming out of the ground. Just the little representation of all of the different big places.
Getting very very heavy like Studio Ghibli feels right now. Like
absolutely.
Super heavy Studio Ghibli feels.
Absolutely. It's just
you said little moss thing, and all I'm thinking now are these little moss creatures that are kind of like crawling underneath the trees as they're walking.
They're crawling under trees. They're climbing inside of what would be a normal sized flower to us, but it's just absolutely monstrous to them, and tucking themselves in with a little bit of pollen. And it's a place where the magic is allowed to be magic, and it doesn't have to abide by court rules or conducts. It just kind of does its own thing.
And that's It's perfect. All right. And where are you at in all this?
I am walking past my favorite little, well, it was my favorite little pond growing up.
Okay.
And it's a little bit less vibrant, almost like the magic's kind of stagnant in the pool, but it's still very pretty. It's just a little bit more quiet
Hmm.
here than in the rest of the spaces that I would have spent my time.
Kind of seeing more so uh like lake almost rather than like ocean. So there's not much movement within the pond.
No, it's very still here, but it's not too still that you can't hear and feel the vibrant spaces
Okay.
that are nearby. It's just this is almost a little bit more of like a place where the magic has decided to like kind of be a little quieter
Okay.
so that people can have a little bit of a quiet space.
And what would you be doing here?
I would be I'd be sitting on a stump and meditating and trying to trying to be in a meditative space without necessarily slipping into the spaces of like communion. Like I just kind of want to be at peace and in silence, but it's a little harder for me to just be without
Okay.
slipping into a place of communions.
So how long are we going to rest at this place of communion where you're just in a relaxing state?
Oh, that's hard just because time is so odd here. You could go
Hmm.
for a walk and think, I've only been gone an hour and it's been 15 years, it's the Feywilds. Time doesn't play by its own rules, but I think if we had to quantify it, it's probably about an hour is what I would feel safe enough spending that time in.
Hmm.
Because I know any longer than that, and I'm gonna go to that place where I'm trying to avoid.
Okay. Hmm. Trying to avoid some.
Mhm.
What? So as you drift into this space, what is what is your character thinking at this moment?
Oh,
What are they seeing in their mind?
I think they're seeing what's kind of like subconsciously always on like the forefront of their mind, and that's just cheese. They love it. They love it. It's kind of what they always want.
All
They
right.
just always kind of want some cheese. But I think beyond that, like, because that's just kind of like subconsciously, that's always on their mind. Like, if you were to ask them, oh, what are you thinking? They would say cheese, but like what I think what they're really thinking about is just like their first memories of this place when it was happier and
Okay.
a little bit more loud than it is now. Now it's a quiet place. It didn't always used to be. And I
Mm.
think that that's what they're thinking about. Like that's what they're really thinking about, but they're also like cheese.
Cheese is the forefront of things, but there
Yes.
is the back end of it that you're like, hmm. There was loudness, there was chaos, there was
Yeah, there was.
a sense of unknown going on where now it seems much more stagnant, much more methodic. There's not really that chaotic feel of the Feywild that you're so branded to be understood by.
And it's really just this space that is
Has lost
quiet.
that.
Yeah, it's everything else around this space. Once you were to start like walking back towards their more or less home, everything gets loud again. But it's just here that it's a little bit more somber magic and energy that's hanging out.
So as you sit there next to the pool, you kind of close your eyes and you envision this space of chaos. And you don't feel it at first, but something tugs on your shoulders.
Mm.
And you start to slowly, almost as if barely noticing, slowly go backwards until the water touches your back. And you, as you're entering that state, and you feel that calmness come over your body, and the water slowly sinks, you sink just a little deeper, starts to cover your shoulders. And then it touches your chin. And then it rests on your lips. And then your body is consumed by the water. And then as you do that, the entirety, as if you're surrounding yourself in a giant bubble, it pops and just rushes on all edges. And you're no longer in the Feywild. You're laying on a floor. The floor is wood. The walls are accented with wood. Lanterns float about 5 to 10 feet above you, your head, bobbing in the wind without wind. But there's no lantern light. There's no lantern strings. It's as if they float there, just enigmatically. Around the edges of the walls, you see these silvery gray stones that interlock into themselves one by one, building this cozy feel space of a tavern. 4 sets of tables sit there out in the around you, each set with 4 plates, 4 dinner table, 4 chairs, a small candle in the center, a large oak bar. As you look back, kind of rolling your head back to see the rest of the room, a large oak bar sits at the edge. It stretches the entirety of the back room. A figure kind of leans over the bar. A dwarf would be the best expectation of what you're looking at. But he seems to be enlarged of some sort. Seems to be he's got a almost presence to himself that he seems bigger than he is. And he looks over and he says, "Well, there's a new one. Normally they come through the walls, the ceiling, the doorway. Never have they appeared on the floor. You all right down there?"
I'm not entirely sure. That depends on where I am.
Well, you're in the tavern.
I mean, that's a little obvious, but where? Because we don't have... This isn't what our taverns look like.
This isn't what most taverns look like. However, I will tell you that you're definitely in a tavern.
Okay.
And he kind of walks around the bar. And as he does, you can see he's dressed very peasant-like. He's got a whitish, I would say white, but a whitish shirt underneath a tan vest. The whiteness on the shirt has kind of dulled itself to a yellow at this point. These heavy, large hands reach down. You can feel the coarse hair on the top, the edges of their knuckles and the tops of their hand. As he reaches down and so let me help you up there.
Why, thank you. It still doesn't really quite tell me where I am, though.
Oh, you're in the Tavern of Tales. I'm sure you probably haven't heard of it. Most people haven't.
No.
I will
Which is
say,
odd,
though,
because I know a lot of things.
lots of people tell me that they come here when they have stories to tell.
Oh, I do have many stories.
You just kind of show up.
Hmm. Well, for once, I'm not entirely upset that I ended up here instead of where I normally end up when my mind starts to wander, so I guess I have story.
You're welcome to pull up a chair. Would you like a drink?
Of course.
You drink ale?
I drink.
A woman after my own heart. And he walks around the bar. And this bar is, he pulls out what looks like a small barrel. Sits about this big. Shouldn't have more than maybe 2 glasses in it. Places it at the table. And with like a flick of a wrist, you can see 2 mugs kind of appear in his hand. He says, 1 second. And he pours 2 cups with an ease, slides you over one. He says, so where do you come from?
Well, just in general or from just now?
Normally, this is the easiest way to figure out what tale you're supposed to tell.
Well, my home was in a small and wild portion of the Feywild. It was a place where, unlike most of the other courts and places, we just let magic do what magic wanted. And it was small and cozy, and that was, well, that was my home. But I never really got to leave there until I was older. As you see, I was not even, my clan was long and gone. When I was able to return home, I am all that's left.
You say your clan. We call family clan in our language. Is it the same thing?
Well, not usually for elves, but for a clan of elves that are all half-elves who are more or less outcasts to the far scourges of the Feywild to be hidden away because we're not like the rest of the people who live there. It's a clan. And then the people who raised me were a type of clan, more of a brotherhood, as they called it.
And why did you leave?
So I grew up with this brotherhood. And I was told and woven a story that they found me outside of a village, and it had been destroyed, and I was the only survivor, and so they took me in and they raised me and they trained me in the arts of the shadow, and I was bestowed with, magic to be able to protect myself. And then I got older and started wondering, why did no one else? Why did no other half elves particularly look like me or speak like me? And I started digging for history and legends and myth of where I might have come from. And I found out that yes, I was rescued from this place, but only after the people who raised me had destroyed it.
Well, the
They
ones that
invaded.
raised you, you are the last one.
Yes. And they realized that I was I was gifted from birth with a special ability and power, and they wanted to control it and harness it. So they were left with no choice but to raise me for their own selfish means. So I left so that I could seek out a way to destroy them. So when I fell here, drowned, I drowned, I came through water. I think I might have drowned. Um, I had just returned home for the first time now that I had found historical documentation of where that home was.
You've been gone for a long time.
Yes.
Do you really feel that what you're doing, heading for this revenge, is worth it?
Well, they took my family and my family's family and my legacy, and they took our power, our special power, and they corrupted it in such a way that I was bestowed with extra power, but thus cursed. And so they took everything from me. I deserve to have at least something, especially the relic, back. So is revenge always worth it? No. Is justice for being the only one left of what you have left? Yes. I think so.
I hope so. Sometimes there's consequences that we don't expect when we dive into justice to that level. Kind of what gets you places like this.
Just like there are unintended consequences for invading a city and not making sure everyone was dead.
True. At a time, I was one of those adventurers. Those people that want to go out and make a name for themselves, or to right a wrong. But after so many years of risking my own life for nothing more than fame, glory, representation, kinship, I found myself here. A good friend of mine, a wizard of sort, strong one at that, asked me to take this place from him. Would say it's kind of, you would say it was a prison. Most say it's a prison.
I was raised in a prison. Taught how to think, when to eat, how to train, when to steal, when to commune with my deities that fight for control over my abilities. Told every day.
And yet you have a mind for yourself.
Yes. So
how guess the training didn't work.
I guess not. That's
But
usually what happens when you find out that your whole family is dead by the hands of the people who said you're our perfect little protege daughter.
hmm,
No. So, no, I wouldn't consider this a prison. It's the
well,
place you decided to end up.
and I agree. Most people though think it's a prison because if you walk out that door and you've told your tale, the tavern will let you go home. If I walk out that door, I walk back in the kitchen.
Kitchen's not a horrible place to walk into. I've had many a success in a kitchen.
I as well, but I don't seem to see any other option. Either if I walk out the kitchen door, I come in the front door. If I walk at the front door, I come in the kitchen door. It doesn't really seem any different.
You seem resolute in the fact that you can't leave, and I think that that's all any adventure wants is resolution. I don't seek glory or heroism or a story of my legacy. I simply wish. I simply wish for what is left of what should have been mine to return to my home so that those spaces can rest and move on in peace. Because my home was always wild, but now it is wild in anger. It is wild in sadness. It is wild in silence. And I am but the lonely tree who can speak for them.
So what's after that?
After that,
That's always the question.
yes. After that, then maybe I'll seek reconciliation with my deities and they can stop time sharing inside of me. Who knows? Maybe I'll just keep letting them fight. It's funny when they both don't get their way because I refuse for them to have it.
So you have a connection to the outside as well.
Yes. I have many connections. This isn't the first place out of a place I've been to. I had to travel through many planes and times to have the information that I have now. And it comes with many a cost, as I'm sure you're aware of.
I said, I only have one cost. That's that I stay the cavern keeper.
But still, it cost.
It does. It's the one thing that I don't know is what's next. I don't think there is a next. I was told when I took this over that only one way I would leave, and that was if my wizard friend came back and took ownership of the tavern. Though we have had guests in this tavern that have, do say, changed the walls. Something I unexpect. Bringing items from their world here. Finding ways to tamper with the cleanliness of this tavern.
Does that seem a little rude to you that people come in and mess with something you're charged with taking care of?
I believe it's more of expected chaos than anything else. This place sits between everywhere. And when people need to tell their tale, sometimes they have things with them. It's not my choice to tell them to leave it here. It's not my choice to tell them to take it with them. If it helps their tale, then they do as they please. What is the one tale that you would like to tell that has ramifications of forever?
Oh, ramifications of forever.
Something that will stain, or rather, write in the walls of time.
A tale that will stain time forever. I was young. I had just finished my last Shadow Jaunt training. Mastered it, really. Weeks before they made me test for it, but I figured I would indulge them. I was always ahead. Always 1, 2, 3 lessons above. But when you study the way of shadow, that's how it works. You have to be ahead. You have to be ahead before the sun catches you and the moon rises. So I was young, ready to oblige them once more, show them my prodigy of my gifts. When they told me that there would be another test I would have to take. And so I sat in shadow, and I sat in the place where all of my family's possessions had been stolen, not quite knowing that yet. And then it wasn't just shadow, it was pitch black. It started seeping into almost my veins. And then almost from outside of that space was the sound of an insatiable hunger that was seeping into my soul. And before I knew it, I was saying yes to an agreement to bind myself to the will of 2 goddesses, where one cannot simply exist without the other. They require each other to exist. And they require me to spread their will.
You're a conduit.
I am. And so to stain time with this travesty, my body, my soul, my heart was stained with the injustice of taking a child's choice to believe in their destiny away from them. So whatever destiny I had before that night, I'll never know, because the destiny that I was forced into is the one that I will always, always be tied to.
It's funny. Destiny has a way of doing itself, no matter where and how. We make our decisions based on our thoughts and our experiences. And as time grows and we learn that destiny is nothing more than a choice that was given to us or taken.
Or taken. Yes.
In your case, though, from what you said earlier and what you're saying now, destiny wasn't taken from you. You were given destiny. Placed it in a silver platter as a child. Something that most would never understood. Even you to this day, from the way it sounds, you don't fully understand what you were given. Because you have the ability to hold back a divine entity.
Oh.
If that's the case, you were not forced with destiny, nor was it stolen from you. It was placed in front of you on a silver platter, and it was your choice on how you wanted to go. I almost think that's more of a challenge than you could ever imagine. If you're forced destiny, or if destiny is taken from you, then your resolution is there. You know what you have to do. You know what you need to do. Yours was handed to you. A blank slate. Your choice in everything. You're the epitome of what the Feywild is. Thinking through that would take some time, but I think what the decisions you'll be making in the next few moments of your life will be based off of your own decisions and not off of some deities that fight for their control.
I would agree with a counterpoint. Is it a gift if one did not ask for it? Gifts are given freely and often without cost because someone asked for something or because someone believed someone would want it.
So what do you call it? Do you believe that you weren't gifted this? It wasn't presented in front of you and you made a choice to take it?
I was a child who was told to sit and do your standard meditation, unaware that a ritual was being cast on me.
But in the end, the way it sounds is that you were still given a choice. Though a child and bred the way you were supposed to, the choice was always yours, and it still is. I think that is the gift. It's not that you were given it, it's that it continues to be given, because there's no other option.
True.
These deities have to have you as a conduit. So your control of them is almost as strong as their control of you.
Indeed.
Which means you can do anything you want.
I usually do. Gets me in trouble.
That is a tale, though. A long one.
Yes, indeed.
And one that continues. And as he says that, it's almost as if the mirror shatters around you as you start to see something that you did not notice before. Each of those stones has a tale written on them from a different tavern, from a different guest. Thousands upon thousands of stones, each with their own distinctive tale And you look around, and you glance, you look up, and you look to your left, and you look to your right. And as you look to your right, about halfway down, just towards the cornerstone at the side between the where the angles set in the back, floating there is a lantern, and you can watch as a bluish light and silver creases that stone as your tale is being written at this moment into the stones.
Oh.
And now, your tale and the gift you are given are forever a part of this tavern.
Hmm. Not such a bad deal for drowning.
You got a nail out of it. And hopefully a
That's
good
not the
story.
worst. Not the worst way I've gotten a nail.
And hopefully a good story.
Hopefully. I hope so.
I don't believe a single patron who's come into this tavern has told me a story I didn't enjoy. I didn't get something from. But it does, every time, remind me that our gift is a choice. The only gift we're given. And nobody can take that from us.
Indeed.
Hopefully, you find that retribution with your family, with the people that murdered them. But do know that every choice has its consequences. And hopefully, whatever comes from that, you can live with.
As long as I get to keep living, and as long as I continue to live and speak for those who had their voice taken, I'll live with the consequences.
I think that's why I like this place. I get to keep those voices. They write themselves into the walls. And one day, when I'm older, would say old, but I'm old enough, I'll just reminisce because a guest won't come through that door anymore. And I'll read the walls day after day, and it'll be as if time doesn't stop ever. Because these stories last forever. And the people that have told them have gained a place here. Maybe one day we'll meet again. It's not happened yet. But as I've said before, people bring things here to the tavern, and the tavern is changing. Who knows what'll happen next?
Well, given the gods' constant need to start time over and build a new world that they can try and make perfect, I think you'll always have stories coming through.
I
And
agree.
who knows? Maybe you're right. Maybe I'll find myself in another world on another time with a new story.
And when you do, and it's a story that needs to be told, maybe you'll return. Maybe you won't. But I wish you the best. And I hope that whatever consequences that come from your decisions are ones you can live with.
I think they are. Thank you for your kindness.
Of course. It's the little charm I still have left.
Well, you have more than charm. You have free ale.
One thing I will say that wizard has created that makes life a little easier
Cheers
is
to
this
that.
little cast doesn't ever end And this dwarf can drink quite a bit.
This half elf can drink quite a bit.
Before you go, maybe this will help just a little bit. And he stands up. He walks to the back of the tavern, of the bar. He looks at 3 different bottles on the wall. A red, a purple, and a green one. He grabs the green bottle. Grabs 2 cups. Walks back out. Now, you saw when he was doing with the ale, it seemed to be like magic, but this is very simplistic. He grabs the cups. He brings them back. He places both of them slightly on, just gently on the table. Uncorks the bottle. Pours what looks like a silverish white liquid into both. An old friend gave me this from their version of the Feywild. We called it the Beastlands. It's a wine of remembrance. It's something that they told me you drink when you have to remember something and then calmly let it go. And he slides the cup towards you. To one last story that you must tell before your new journey begins. Cheers. And he grabs the cup, and as you sip it out of the corner of your eye, what are the names of your parents?
Out of the corner of Tree's eye, she would see her mother, Tyene, and her father, Rede Pecorora. And she would remember from this form of remembering just how truly blessed they felt to have had a child at all.
And as
Didn't
you
matter.
take that cup and you drink it, it's as if the names are written in the water as you shoot the drink, the shot. In the moment of peace, that harmonizing feel that you felt in the Feywild where you were just at, the calmness of magic, if you will, just rushes over you for a moment.
Interesting.
I wish you best of luck.
Thank you.
And he kind of slides the chair back, grabs the cups, grabs his strange cask of ale that he placed on the table, walks back to the bar, pulls out a rag from underneath it, and starts to clean the cups. And he doesn't acknowledge you anymore.
Right.
He just goes back to his normal. But there's a front door that's slightly ajar, and you can see the colors of the Feywild kind of coming from outside.
She had Spock.
And as you walk through the door, once again, as if time shifts and that bubble bursts and you're laying in the garden in the Feywild, drenched from head to toe in water. You feel that rush of calm magic pour over you. And you look up and you can see the sky. And you look to the left and to the right, and you can see the small creatures that inhabit this area and the fauna that lives in it. And we slowly bring the camera back farther and farther away as it drifts to the point where all you see is colors. And that, my friends, is where our story will end. Thank you for joining us at the tavern. Tree was such an enjoyable character, and telling that story was fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed it.
I had an absolute blast. It was a much a softer side of Tree than we usually get. She's normally throwing fists and firing off hexes.
But yeah, no, like I said, this place is a place where we get to tell the tale of our players.
I love
We
that.
tell the tale of our friends. And so many people have asked questions to the tavern keeper of who he is, where he's going, all these things. And I will tell you that from months of doing this, still to this day, that tavern keeper knows nothing more than he is a tavern keeper. And that is his job.
Yeah,
and I'm okay with that.
yeah, and I think that's probably like why Tree didn't like ask him. She's just like, oh yeah, you're keeping a tavern. Like, you know, I think she has plainer walked enough in her 120 half elf years that she's just like, yeah, dude's stuck at a time tavern. That's fine. I don't that's what he's doing, you know, like
Yo, and
yeah.
that's the thing is it's crazy to think that way, but for him, this is just an everyday thing, and um, he was a character that became dear to me in a time where my personal life was definitely in shambles. Um,
I
and
can I can relate to that, like with Tree, you know, like she's my oldest D&D character, and I don't mean that in like the sense of her age. I
oh
mean
yeah.
literally like this was one of the first characters I built after I got back into D&D, and you know, I just so much was going on in my life, and I was
Hmm.
just like I put a lot of myself into a lot of my characters,
Yeah.
but like Tree's just that one that it's like that's my personality. This is the characters I love to play. This character
Hmm.
type is the one I love to play most, but also like, you know, so much of her story is like how I kind of visualized what I was dealing with at that time. Like, just everything was ripped from me, and everything
Hmm.
I had known was a lie. And so, yeah, I can absolutely relate to that. Like, that's Tree's just that character, you know?
Yeah, I've always played. I think it's interesting because you brought something up that I didn't realize just right then. You know, I've always played a character who is very noble. I mean, I've been playing Paladin since I was like 8 years old. Like, it's just been my go-to. Um, but once everything started happening in life and things started to explode and things were changing, the only thing I ever came back to was the story. You know, it was always the storyteller, and in this character was a background character. He was supposed to be used as a conduit for other players to join because he was not. I was like, oh, I'm a veteran at this. I've been playing this thing for years. Um, but in this case, I was like, I'm going to let other people tell their story, And it was interesting to, after a few years of not playing this character, bringing him back as the tavern keeper just made this experience feel so much more real because of the fact that even at his beginning, at his creative stance, that was the point of the character. He was a fighter to begin with, but his main tell was to let others tell their story. He was just there just to help. And he's now become one of my favorite people to play. Though I will say that the Mythweaver in our campaign on Mondays is slowly becoming just as
Slowly
exciting to
becoming,
play.
yeah, yeah.
I love just the ambiance of that character as he's starting to
He's
grow into.
it's like D&D ASMR is kind of like what he's becoming. Like I have to like sometimes I have to like really like focus in on what you're saying or else like I'll just like sit there and not take my notes and then I'm like, what did he just say for the last 5 where did I go? Like, and I'm just like, oh no. So I'm just like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like, so if, like you see me on Mondays, and I've just kind of like gone from like zoned look to just like
Yo,
shaking my head to everything you're saying. It's because I don't know what you said the last 5 minutes. I'm
I
like,
hope that's a good thing and not a bad thing, but
honestly, I think it's a good thing just because like I think that like that's just generally how Castle goes. Is she's just like, yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, but what's my plan? I hear what you're saying, but you know what? This is fine. We'll figure something else
we'll
out. Like
figure
we'll
it out.
run
I
for
got this.
government.
Yeah. No, the Mythweaver once again, it's funny because everybody says, they put a piece of their character into the game.
Yeah.
I have found that my like style of play is putting a piece of a me into my game or into my GMing. So it has become now this connection that I'm making with my game master characters between the lore keeper and now we've got the tavern keeper with the myth weaver and then the tavern keeper.
I
um
Yeah, I can relate to that so much. I always kind of have to have like an NPC or something that's like a little bit of me like in my campaigns. Like our our campaign that we just started on Saturday, I've got like 4 of like my characters that I haven't actually either gotten to play in a campaign or that I haven't played in a campaign in a really long time. So I'm like, okay,
mhm.
there's a piece of me. But then like I also have like a new character that I built just for this campaign that I'm like, oh, here we go.
Right.
And then in our last season, I had an NPC that was like directly tied to like one of our players and like I made it very obvious that this character was supposed to be me and none of them got it.
Nobody
So
figured it
like
out.
it was almost like I could have held up a piece of paper that said this is me and they would have been like they still would have been like who
Who? What
who are
happened?
you? And I'm just like, all right, and you know what? Never
Yeah,
mind.
I'm done.
I'm like,
Done with you.
I'm
Goodness
like,
gracious.
I was like, you know what? I know who this character is, and I know their importance. That's all that matters.
Right. Well, it was an absolute blast talking with you, finding out about Tree and that story that she has been they've been telling. Um, if you enjoy this and you're watching tonight, make sure that you go give Torrance a follow and stuff over on TikTok. Uh, and also, if you can and you're enjoying our stories, come check us out on Monday nights. We really are everybody's starting to get into the feel of their characters, and we're starting to see the connections growing. And I'm so excited to see where this goes in the near future. And do be prepared because there is a guest coming. He's not a guest. He will be part of the main cast, but I can't wait for you to finally see our final main character. But that is also going to be the catalyst to what is actually coming. So I'm super excited.
I can't wait. I'm so ready.
But I hope everybody had a good time. This is last call. If you have questions, make sure you toss those in the chat real fast. Otherwise, Torrance, where can they find you?
Yeah, they can find me here on Twitch at TinyT14. I've been in the chat, mostly emojis. And then they can also find me on TikTok at the TinyT14. And then if they want to come hang out for games or D&D and things like that, they're more than welcome to reach out to me on any of those platforms, and they're at home at my home of the TCC Discord.
There you go. And of course, I am a tavern keeper for the evening. I am Tabletop Misfits. You can find me on Wednesday nights here at the tavern every single week with new guests telling stories of their worlds, their players, and what they're doing in this community that we've created. You can also find me now over on Gen Con on Monday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can find Torrance and a whole bunch of other cosplayers that are having an absolute blast as we dive through the heliciously cold world of Icewind Dale.
So stupid.
It's we're still trying to figure out why everybody is really there, but you know, being in the worst place in the world has kind of been a fun way to start the campaign. Uh,
It's we're having a lot of fun, guys.
they're having a
Come
lot of
hang out.
fun.
We've got the girls have got hashtags going, so get ready.
Be prepared. We've got merchandise probably coming. We have
We got
an
merch. We got
incredible crew.
hashtags. We got
It's ridiculous.
it got out of control real fast.
It did. And if that is something that you're interested in, you want to know the back end of everything, please give me a favor and go to our YouTube channel and ask, put those comments into those episodes of the questions that you have for our players. And if we get enough of those, we might be able to bring up like a after party or another night like that where you can sit with the players and ask those questions for like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. So, but we've got to run that through with all the channels and whatnot and make sure the players are okay with it and everything. Like I said, we want to know if you're really enjoying the game and having a good time because we're really having a fun time telling the story. But this is it. We're closing the tavern down. Grab your drink, rise it high, have your final drink, and we'll see you guys all next week on Tavern Talks. Good night.
Bye, guys.